Welcome back to lesson 2, part 4. This is where we're going to work on the splining. Now, what is splining? In the first part, blocking, we blocked out our scene or mapped it out to show where the ball is going to start, what's going to happen, and then when it's going to end. Now in the splining, we're going to take what we did and add in that ease in and ease out motion to make it seem more realistic. We'll also learn more of the physics involved so we understand why we add in ease in and ease out to the animation. So yeah, let's get to it. Select your ball, make sure that you have the ghost control and the outliner selected. Go to visualize, open ghosting editor, and then create ghost from selection. For now, just copy my settings. Make sure that this ghosting button is selected. And you can check if your ghost control is selected because it should be down here. So just do that and then exit out of it. And let's take a break from the Playblast camera and go to the front view so we can zoom in and see things a bit easier. So click on the front view, click on the spacebar, and that should take up the entire screen. We can also close the outliner for now so we can just focus on our ball. Okay. With that being said, let's save. So File, Save Scene As. Let's change this to spline. Looks like I've already done that. So L02_spline. Make sure it's my ASCII file and save as. Okay. Now let's play our animation. You should have something that looks like this. Okay. Now, let's talk about the forces involved. What is supposed to happen as the ball rolls down the ramp, rolls here, and then hits the wall? What should happen? Let's open up my notes. So, when the ball rolls down the ramp, it converts its potential energy into kinetic energy. As it descends, gravity is pulling it downwards, causing it to accelerate and gain speed. Let's focus on that for now. So with that being said, select the ball, go to Window, Animation Editors, Graph Editor. I'm going to click and drag my graph editor. So where it says Graph Editor up here, click it, hold it, drag it over here next to the channel box. You should see this blue line like my screen, and then let go. Now it'll be on the side and we can see our animation. We can adjust, we can zoom in and out and look at a little more detail than before. So select your ball. We're going to go to Show, select Attributes. For this part in splining, we're only going to be working on X and Y. But for now, yeah, this is fine. X and Y. Now, because we're only working on X, let's go to the Y translate and delete these two keys down here. So keep the one on frame 1, but let's delete these two, where it hits the bottom of the ramp and the collision here. Delete those for now. Now going back to translate X, let's see what's happening. So let's play it again and see the difference. Okay, so we can see moving across the screen and hitting the wall. Now, that doesn't seem quite right. We got an ease in, and right before it hits the wall, we get an ease out. Let's see an example. Let's see if there's ease out when it hits the wall. I don't think it slows down there. Let's watch it a couple more times to check. Does it slow down when it hits the wall? No, it doesn't. So right before it hits the wall, it should not already be slowing down. Now going back to the science behind it, once the ball hits the wall, that's when things change. So before it hits the wall, it should have that linear motion or that acceleration or constant speed. But once it hits the wall, that's when there's a change in motion, which will suddenly make the ball bounce back and change the speed depending on how squishy or how tough the ball is. So let's fix that in the graph editor. Let's fix that first part. In the timeline down here, in the right inner number, let's change that to 40. This allows us to work only on the first part. So if you remember from the last lesson, part A to part B. So we do not want that ease in when it hits the wall, okay? So in the graph editor, you're going to select the point 40. When it hits the wall, I'll zoom in a bit so you can see a bit better. And we're going to change this to linear. So remember, we have this linear button right here, this straight line, linear tangents. Let's see how that changes the movement. Okay, so we can see that now we have an ease in, and now we have that constant, more linear motion. Okay, that looks good so far. But before we move on, I think we can make this ease in a bit better. We can make it a little more dramatic. So let's practice that. So with frame 40, let's break the tangent. So it should be under tangents, break tangents. This allows us to adjust one arm of the two arms on the key. Okay, if you actually select frame 1 in the graph editor, so see, click, drag, select, and then click on F. Now it'll zoom in to frame 1 and frame 40. We won't have the full thing like that. A little bit easier to see what's happening. So if I click on frame 40 and I click on the tangent, you might have some hard time clicking on it, just try your best. And then we can adjust the curve. And you can see in real time with that ghosting editor what's happening to the ball. So having the curve more steep like this, near 40, makes it, instead of causing a linear motion, it's still linear, but it's accelerating. It's linear and accelerating. And this will make it a little more dramatic on the ease in. So it's slow, 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 and then really accelerating there. So that's a really nice curve. Again, you don't want to go too much where it goes past frame 1's line right here. If we do that, we'll get some wonky motion. Let's see what happens. Yeah, we don't want that. That's useful in some cases, but not for this assignment. So I'm just going to adjust that back. See how that looks. I like that. That looks nice. Okay, so now in the time slider below, let's slide it and move this. So if you go to the left side, the inner number, let's change that to 40. In the graph editor, click on it, and then click on F. Then click on the last frame, frame 60, click on F. Now it'll zoom in and look really nice. I'm going to zoom in on my front Z so you can see better what's happening. Now if I play it, let's see what happens. So we got a slight ease in, and this is linear, but we need that more acceleration because the ball's coming in, it's hitting the wall, and then bouncing back. It won't just accelerate, hit the wall, and then slowly move linear like that. So let's grab the point, which is frame 40. See where my mouse is? So click, drag to select, and then move this tangent down. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, so that looks like it's bouncing more. To really see and feel the effect, let's pause it real fast. Let's go down to the time slider down here and double click on this bar. Now we're going to see the full animation. Okay, let's see how bouncy it looks. Yeah, that looks nice. So in this point in the video, you should have something like this on the X translate. So ease in, accelerate, sudden change in motion, and then ease out. Very good. Okay, let's save that for now. So file, let's save our scene. This is good progress. Okay, now that we have the X translate, let's get the Y translate done. So go into the timeline and let's scrub again to see when the ball is at the end of the ramp. For me, it's around, it's like 33 or 34. I'm gonna move it down to 34. So it's a little bit different than last time. I think last time we had to move it to 22, but based off the timing of the translate X, let's do the 34 this time. So I'm gonna grab my ball, I'm gonna move it down. Actually, I can go into the channel box. So you can open it up over here. And we want to make the translate Y 0. And let's key it. So key selected. I right click, key selected. I'm gonna close the channel box again. I'm gonna go to my scene, click on F to view everything. And let's play it and see what happens. So we still get this weird effect like before. Let's mess around in the graph editor to see what we can do. Let's also change the framing of our timeline so that we only see frame 1 to 34. So if you go in the inner numbers, so we got 1, make the right side the inner number, 34. So now we are only working from 1 to 34. We can also go ahead and zoom in or frame in over here. Okay, so in the graph editor, make sure you have the translate Y. And now let's talk about more of the science behind it. Get out the notes. So this part is focused on gravity. So when a ball rolls down the ramp, it converts its potential energy into kinetic energy. We already got that. So as it descends, gravity is pulling it downwards, causing it to accelerate and gain speed. So what does that sound like to you? To me, that sounds like an ease in going into acceleration. So let's make this an ease in. I'm gonna put my notes away. So in the graph editor, hopefully you're already familiar, but let's make this an ease in. Oh, and don't forget, all you need to do, if you saw my adjustment there, is select a point, click down F to frame, okay? Now, let's see. Oh, let me show you, let's make this flat, which we already did, and this one, we need to curve up, cause that ease in, okay? Let's see how it looks now. Okay, that looks way better than before. That's awesome. I almost got that like perfect. Sweet. We can actually use one more tool. Go back to that ghosting editor, because now I want you to see both sides, so we can tweak this curve in the graph editor to make sure that it's on the ramp. See how it's not on the ramp there? The whole time. That'll make our animation a little more believable, a little more realistic. Because it wouldn't just start to fly and then hit the ground. It's not going that fast. So go to Visualize, go to Open Ghosting Editor, and we're going to turn on this button right here. This is so we can see the frames before and the frames after. So if we scrub through our timeline, you can see that the first few frames are pretty good. We can actually do some more adjustments there. And then the last frames are kind of getting off the ground. We don't want that. So let's see what we can do to tweak this to make sure that it's right. So I'm just going to grab this curve, this tangent right here, adjust it slightly. Okay, you can see how I adjust it. It's still affecting everything. So let's change the weight of these tangents. Right now, let me zoom in. I want you guys to see this. So right now we can't really change how far these lines out. They are staying in place, but I want to change the weight of them. So to do that, you want to select both. Let's go to, well, first off, let's break the tangents. Might as well break the tangents. I like getting into that habit. And then you want to go to curves. You want to scroll down and say weighted tangents. Weighted tangents. Okay. So now these tangents are weighted, and this will affect how much pull they have on either side. So if I click on the top one, you got to be careful on this. Click on the top one, hold down Shift, middle mouse click, and drag to the right. You can see the real-time effect in camera front Z. Do you see that? The ball is going up and down because I'm moving the curve out and in. With these slight adjustments, you can fix, yeah, look, this is already fixed over here. It is like more so on the ground. And by moving it out, the right side can still be fixed. So let's select that point. Let's grab that tangent. Now, Shift, middle mouse, click and drag. That allows you to go in one direction. So if I just click it without middle mouse click and drag, I can move the whole curve. See that? By just grabbing onto this handle. But if I like the direction it's going, and I just want to change how strong this curve influences it, or how strong this tangent influences this curve, that's where I want to go to Shift, middle mouse click and drag down. Hopefully you can see that. I really want to influence this area. So let's try to move it as best we can. Looks like it made it worse. So I'm going to actually do Command Z. And this is all part of splining, this fine tuning right here. This is all part of splining. This is the longer part of splining. I want to show you one more technique that can help with this process. And the goal is to use as little frames as possible. The least amount of frames you use,
the better. Okay? So, I've been trying for a little bit and I haven't been able to get it quite right. So let's start off by going in the middle in between our frames, so between 1 and 34. Let's say that's about, I'm eyeballing it, 18 to me. Um, Actually, let's go more on the middle of the curve. So this curve, let's do the middle of the ramp instead. So middle of the ramp, it's about 27 for me. Let's do that instead. Let's select the curve on my graph editor. See how the curve is selected? It is now highlighted. I'm going to right click to insert a key. What's great about this is I'm inserting a key on the point on the curve that I like. And it doesn't affect my X translate at all. See, there's no key added here. So this is just affecting, this is like key selected, which is awesome. So now I'm going to grab this point and use shift, middle mouse click and drag up and down to adjust it to make sure it's on my ramp. I can even zoom in like I showed you before. Use that wireframe to move it up and down. Again, all I'm doing is shift, middle mouse click, up and down, and I have my move tool on, my W key on. So let's adjust that. That looks good to me. And now let's try to adjust these curves. So maybe we can adjust this one. Yeah, go a little bit down. Just do some micro adjustments. Oh, let's break that tangent again. So tangent, break tangents. So we can adjust that. So all I'm doing is just adjusting this curve so that we can see in real time, based off the ghosting, how it is moving on the ramp. This is a great tool to help visualize. The other thing that you can do, if this is a little hard to do, like these micro adjustments, is let's go in between 27 and 34, right? So in between that is about, I'm gonna eyeball it and say, let's do 31 or 30. I'm gonna do 31. I'm gonna insert key, and then adjust as needed. Again, ideally, I'm gonna zoom in. You're making as little adjustments as possible. I might need to go directly on frame 33, add a frame here, insert key, make sure it's on that. And while you do this process, it's okay to be like, well, I need to try again. Let me just delete the ones in between, and let me just try again on this curve. That is completely okay. So if you need to do that, that's fine. I just did it. So let me just continue to mess around, see if I can get this curve looking nice, because we still want to keep it a round curve, and we still want to get the timing right. Okay, so let's do a little more fine tuning. I went back a few steps and I'm going to add some keys in the beginning just to make sure that it looks right. So going back from frame 1, scrubbing through, seems to go down around here. I'm going to insert my key and adjust it slightly. Then from 12, I'm going to adjust it again, around 22. Insert my key. Shift middle mouse click. And then it seems to be sinking in the most around 27. So I'm going to add a frame at 27. Shift middle mouse click up. Yep, looking good so far. Let's see. Then this looks okay so far. It's off the ground at the most at 33. So let me see if I can adjust or insert a key at 33 instead. Move that down. Insert a key at... So I'm just inserting keys so that my ghosting is flat, or for the most part flat, on the ramp, and so that my ball isn't hovering. Okay. So I think I added enough. Let's see how that looks. I think it looks okay. I scrub through it using my ghosting as a guide. It looks pretty good to me. Okay, so what I did to backtrack was I increased the weight at first of this one, and then it's much better to start at the first frames because the frames afterwards will affect the last frame. So go in order. So starting from one, scrubbing through, and when you see a discrepancy, so it moving into the ramp or too high, click on the curve, insert key, adjust it, and then move on. And the goal is to have as little added frames as possible. Now, some animators for 3D treat this like traditional animation, and they animate on twos. So every 2 frames, they add a frame. For 3D, because we have this graph editor, the computer is supposed to help you interpret those frames, but for those who want to control everything like that, that's okay too, but ideally it's much easier if you have less red lines to just understand what's going on than just fine-tune it like we've done. So yeah, I finished mine. If you've not finished yours, I would pause the video before moving on. So yeah, I'm gonna double click on my timeline down below so you can see the full thing. I'm gonna also save. Let's save real fast. We made some good progress. Save. I'm gonna turn off visualize, open ghosting, and only have this one turned on right here so we can see the frame before. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that's not bad. I like that. Sweet. Okay, now that we've finished translate X and Y, here's the challenge for you. You are going to handle rotate Z all by yourself. using the techniques that we just used. So once you're done with the splining phase, we're going to go to File, Save Scene As, because we just saved it. So File, Save Scene As, and we're going to name this file L02 Rotate Z. Rotate Z Maya ASCII file. This is so if something happens to Rotate Z, you mess up, and you're like, well, I need to start over. You can go back to your spline file, which is done, open that back up, resave it as Rotate Z, and then you can start fresh again. Okay? So make sure you do that. It helps to track your progress. So save scene as my ASCII file. Now, I have an example of what it should look like. So once you're done, it should look something like this. I got the ramp going down, I got it hitting the wall, and I got it rotating, right? And I also want you to observe what's exactly happening. So when the ball is going down the ramp, what direction is it turning? Is it clockwise or counterclockwise? And once it hits the wall, what is also happening? If it's changing direction, is it still clockwise or counterclockwise? Okay, I'm gonna just put that to the side. And I'll give you a few more hints to help you out with this part. So first off, select your ball, and let's go back to the graph editor. You want to go to Show, select Attributes, make sure Rotate Z is turned on. Okay? I'm also going to help you and set the first frame. So go to frame 1, go to Rotate Z, and you can either hold down Shift E, or you can key selected like we've been doing throughout this assignment. So right click, key selected. Now to rotate, let me just show you the tool real fast. The next key you'll want is frame 40. We're essentially copying the same frames we have for translate X, because those are the 3 points that we want to make sure we have a key for rotation on. Okay, so frame 40, let's add some rotation. So to add rotation, we click on the E key, or you can click on it over here. Now, there's a couple of ways we can do it. We can either physically move the ball here, or we can click on Rotate Z in the channel box, hold down Shift, middle mouse click and drag to the right, or to the left, depending on what direction you're going. So, middle mouse click and drag. Once I'm happy with it, I go to Rotate Z, right click, and key selected. Let's check out what happens. So it's still a little bit off, and that is because it's up to you to see how much it should rotate and to adjust it in the graph editor to give it ease in, ease out, very similar, if not the same, as translate X, but it will be a different position, so just be aware of that. So yeah, that is your challenge. Work on that. Don't forget to save your results. And once you are done, I want you to Playblast it so it looks like this. And here, let me quickly go through how to Playblast again so that you don't forget. So let's pretend you're done. Let's File, Save Scene. To prep the Playblast camera, let's turn off the resolution gate. Let's go to the timeline, right click. Let's go to this square in Playblast. You can copy my settings, and the movie file name should be called, let me check my notes. It should be called Rotate Z. So L02 underscore Rotate Z. So lesson 2 underscore Rotate Z. We already adjusted the camera settings and the render settings, so everything else should be good. Let's click on Playblast. when you're ready. This is just for example. Yep, that looks good to me. Make sure you add the rotation after it hits the wall and add in the proper ease in and ease out. To double check that it's saved, you can open this up, go to lesson 2. It should be under movies. Yep, there is my rotate Z. But again, you want it to look like this at the end. Something like this. So, yeah. Get at it and have fun animating. There is one more video, but this step should take you a little bit of time to do. So yeah, have fun.